Hi, this is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your Wicked Stocks YouTube channel weekly Mag 7 series for the week, this week, of Tuesday, May 26, 2026, coming off the Memorial Day weekend. We begin with Microsoft as usual. Microsoft threw off a significant sell signal back in March, had some degree of downside follow through into the mid 350s. We were looking as our first target for the mid to upper 340s, these old highs and lows, going back to 21 and then again in 25. We never really reached that before springing back, closing back above the structure. This is a 4 or 5 year channel bottom, 40802, that still has relevance in terms of support, and it has actually been behaving that way. As you can see, we broke through it, below it, on an intra-week basis, but we've never closed back below it. And if we do, we have a sell signal then once again. But until then, we've got the rejection of a long-term sell signal, which in my book is almost the same as a valid buy signal. In other words, I do think holding above 408.02, 487.31, this former channel bottom in reach. There's just a lot going on the chart besides this structure, and I've been saying this now for the last couple of months. This remains a 2 to 3 month target, even though we're about a month and a half into it. So from now, from late May, 2 to 3 months from now, 487.31 in reach. Let me move on to the next chart. We did this, did we close above this descending channel top? We probably did by a hair. I'm not really following the exact number, but I can just look at the chart to see that we were just above it. But I'm not going to take that as a significant buy signal. I think that you can lop this in 413.18, this descending channel top, with 408.02 as still a continued zone of support that can contain selling through Q3 and above which over the next 2 to 3 months, 487.45 in reach. Now, I do think that if we close above 429.92 this week, you have a go with buy signal. So if you've not been bottom picking Microsoft for the last 3, 4, 5 weeks as it continues to plot along this long-term channel bottom, you're buying a settlement above the high of this pullback low. So once we close back above this channel bottom, we rallied for a week or two and then we fell back. That low, the high of that low, which does represent this congestive top, really, 429.92. If we settle Friday above 429.92, then yes, probably inside of 2 months, we would see 487.45, where we could top out on a monthly basis and fall away. Once again, if we do close this week below the 408.02 level, let me get this out of the way. I know you can't see what that is, but it's part of my recording software. Closing below 408.02 within 2 to 3 months, the mid to upper 340s, and the potential then exists for even longer-term bearish continuation to this full channel extension, a targeting mechanism I've used for a long time that works pretty well when you have significant long-term sell signals. The only problem in this respect is the fact that we've been here before without any downside follow through. So I think we're really kind of in a stair step situation. Where below 408.02, you can expect the mid to upper 340s, and then below 344.79, you can then expect the 220s and climbing within a matter of 3 to 5 months or so. Let's move on to Meta. Same thing as Microsoft, really. Threw off a meaningful sell signal, not as significant as the Microsoft one, as if you may recall. That was like a longer-term sell signal that anticipated longer-term bearish continuation. This one was in the order of like 2 to 3 months, if you recall. And we just sprung right back. Within 2 weeks, we were back above it. Once again, it's also acting as decent support. We got the settlement above. Failed sell signal as it was is the valid buy signal. We got a kind of 1 to 2 week rally out of this. Then we came back and we've been retesting the 601.12. This is still a base of support above which we remain stable to bullish as we move into the third quarter. I'll just jump to that right now. Anticipating still this 686.40 level. So there's your 601.12. That is once again this channel bottom that spans over a year. 601.12 is your base of support. I throw the 623.73 in here because I think this is your up pivot after several weeks of consolidation. If we close above 623.73, which is the high of the low, once again, from a couple of weeks ago, then we've got bullish continuation. This could be within 2 to 3 weeks. We have precedent for that. This could take the better part of 2 months. We also have precedent for that. So closing above 623.73 within 1 to 2 months, somewhere in there, depending on volatility. 686.40 is likely. And this is a descending, this is, a 9-month, 10-month channel top, 7 or 8 month channel top that can contain buying pressures on a monthly basis, and we can fall away. In terms of going long Meta through the rest of the year on strength, where you've got a signal that this thing could actually trend again to the upside, that would come with a settlement above 686.40. Until then, we're kind of locked in this congestive framework between 686.40 as a ceiling and 601.12 as a floor. If we do close above, and I'll say this last time I'm going to show this chart, in the months ahead, close above 686.40, I see a retest of the 796.25 high from last year within 2 to 3 months or so, and then onward and upward probably to 904.50 as we continue through the rest of the year and into early next. If we do close back below 601.12, then Meta is back on its heels. I would expect this low settlement price that was put out in March within a matter of weeks and within a month or two, 3 at the most. 483.98 would be expected with a weekly settlement below 601.12. 483.98 is a longer-term 4-year channel bottom that can contain annual selling pressures. If you're looking for a place to buy Meta as an investment, on a longer-term basis on weakness, it really is 483.98 if given the opportunity, because from here we can round up through 27. Or you're buying that settlement, as I say, above 686.40. Google threw off a new high last week and then fell back to close negative on the week. It almost put out a key reversal high. Had it closed below 382.77, which is the previous week's low. We closed at 382.97. That would have been a bearish engulfing pattern, or I call them key reversal high. Usually on a weekly bar chart, a sign of an overbought market that is inclined to correct negatively. We still may see this. I call this a mini reversal. New all-time high, closing negative on the week. 381.77 is last week's low. And if we close this week below last week's 381.77 low, within 1 to 3 weeks, I would expect 349 even. And I'll just jump to the big picture possibility. Because let's back up a little bit. Having closed above this, what is this? Roughly a 1-year channel we closed above 3 weeks ago, and we closed just above 2 weeks ago, closed clearly back below last week. This is a failure to follow through on a buy signal unto itself, oftentimes a sign of weakness. And so the other shoe to drop on that sign of weakness would be a settlement below 381.77. And I do think you can anticipate within 1 to 3 weeks 349 even. And I also think you can play within several months 297.64. I do think that this is a very real possibility. 2 to 3 months from now, we're talking August. We're really talking 330s. It could happen quicker, obviously, where we could be in the low 300 region. Keep in mind, this structure is rising on a gradual basis. So I'm not expecting the 290s if we close below 381.77, but a higher number. And we'll be watching this on a week-to-week basis. Out of a long position with a settlement this week below 381.77 and invited to play the short side in Alphabet as we move into the third quarter. Until then, we can spring back. And if we do close above not only 400.40, this channel top once again, but above 400.80, the high settlement price that was put out 3 weeks ago, I do think within a week we'll see 425.89, which is just a hesitation point, I think, for maybe a week or so. I think if we close above 400.80, then we can see, I don't know about this kind of market volatility, but eventually make our way by the end of the year or sooner to this 506.67 full channel extension, if we close above 400.80 this week. Amazon had this big run. If you recall, we had the buy signal back in early April above the 222.40 channel top that anticipated this longer-term rising channel top at 289.17. As it turns out, we actually did top out at an inside channel here that you can see is based on this low from April of 25 at 280.50 this week. So the 280s, big area of resistance for Amazon, may actually contain buying through the third quarter, and we can fall away. Certainly, if we were to close above 289.17 in the coming weeks, that would be a significant go with buy signal longer term as we move through the rest of the year. I don't even have a target mapped out just yet for that. But until all that, we've topped out here We've fallen back to the 258.60 high that was put out in November, and here we are. Last week I'd mentioned 268.79, the low of the high, may contain weekly highs, and that did essentially happen last week. If we close this week above 268.79, we should next week reach 280.50, and there we are again in the 280s. This is an area to, if you're long Amazon, consider shedding some of that long position because there's the very real risk of longer-term bearish rotation. But if we close above 289.17, jump back in the long side longer term, and I'll give you those targets in subsequent videos. Now, downside, after having tested this longer-term resistance area, you can make that case. Closing back below 258.60, this market remains on its heels and should, within 1 to 2 months, depending on volatility, fall back to this 222.40 descending channel top. I think that would be a likelihood if we close this week below 258.60. 222.40 is really the beginning of a narrowing zone that ends at 194.09. This is a newly formed rising one-year channel bottom based in part on the high that was put out 3 weeks ago. It all comes together, this descending channel top and this rising channel bottom in August. So if we were to close below 258.60, the timing of that is not altogether hard to believe. We could see the low 200s. I know that's a bit of a stretch. This is a significant sell-off for Amazon. I think we could see this channel top pretty quickly within a month or two. But within a month or two, we're talking, we're already talking the low 200s. So this area is narrowing at a pretty good pace, can absorb selling for the rest of the year and well into next. And inversely, once again, if we close this week above 289.17, we've got a significant buy signal as we continue through the rest of the year. Apple, we cover every single week. I'm actually getting reluctant to show this. This might be the last time. We've got to talk amongst ourselves at wickedstocks.com to see. We provide these little snapshots of Apple and NVDA, and we've got subscribers who actually pay for this information and subscription packages that include, of course, daily NVIDIA, weekly Apple stock, daily SPY, daily Triple Q, 2 stock picks a week, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we may eliminate Apple and NVIDIA from this weekly series. It wouldn't be complete, I understand that, but the idea is obviously it's not fair to our subscribers who pay for this information. Now, they do get much more than this, typically. This is a broad brushstroke of Apple. And 2 weeks ago, we settled above the significant 6-year channel top for the first time after it held repeatedly for the last year and a half. This has indicated longer-term upward continuation for Apple. Our near-term objective is the 325.39 rising channel top. We've called this a 2 to 3 month target, but I said at the time this could be within 3 to 5 weeks, and that seems to be more the case. 325.39 is rising weekly and can contain monthly buying pressures, and we can fall away from here back into the 290s within a matter of a month or two before rounding up again. Ultimately, over the next year or two, and we actually saw a similar one within 8 months, the same distance. So possibly by the end of the year, 392.47. If we close any week above this rising channel top, an accelerated move by the end of the year into the 390s. Downside, if we close back below 392.76, this channel top, I do see the 240s in reach again within several months. Tesla, we covered every single day on our YouTube channel. You may have already seen it for Tuesday. This is really the big picture. We came off this long-term channel bottom about 2 months ago, 352.31 and climbing. We'd mentioned after testing it, you can expect, well, there's more going on here, but really this 451.12 channel top, this area was expected 2 to 3 months, and now we could fill this wedge out for the next 2 to 3 months potentially. Selling the low 450s, buying the low 350s, and narrowing gradually. This all comes together in October. It's not gonna take that long. At some point, we're either gonna close below 352.31 or above 451.12, and the likelihood is above 451.12 because of the longer-term scope of this 352.31 one-year channel bottom. So closing above 451.12 signals 498.83, the all-time high within probably 3 to 5 weeks or less, and within 2 to 3 months, this 6-year channel top at 452.37 would be expected. I've been saying that after testing this long-term channel bottom a couple of months ago at 352.31, you could allow perhaps by the end of the year the 542.37 6-year channel top. And if we close this week above 451.12, within about 2 to 3 months. Let's move on to NVDA. Once again, we may discontinue this on the Mag 7. We're gonna talk about that. Anyway, the low of the high, 213.89. If we close below that, we retest within several weeks, 193.81. This is a base of support, having settled above it about 6 weeks ago, expecting roughly the low 240s. And that remains in play, 242.36, over the next few weeks, holding above 213.89. We are anticipating this. This is an area where we could top out on a monthly, possibly quarterly basis. If we close below 213.89 this week, expect a retest within 1 to 3 weeks of 193.81, where we could bottom out through June, through July, and round up again. Let's move on to, I could show the S&P 500. We've reached an exhaustion point, believe it or not, in the S&P. Long-term wave counts. You can pause the video if you want to take a look at this basic math, but we've reached an area where the market has achieved long-term balance and equilibrium, and the susceptibility is falling away now into later year for the S&P 500, unless we close above 74.91. That's another story, longer-term upward continuation. This is the S&P 500 index. If we close this week in the index below 7338.4, below the low of the high, after having tested long-term resistance, the emphasis remains at the downside as we move through June and into July. I would anticipate this 6831 former channel top. And finally, Palantir, not part of the Mag 7, but we provide it anyway. 125.41 base of support that's been holding well, really, since the early part of this year. We're in a congestive framework right now. Near term, you can sell 152.06, this former channel bottom. This is our two-sided framework through June. Buying 125.41, selling 152.06. If we close below 125.41, we would expect 107.79 and dropping weekly. Probably within 3 to 5 weeks, could be quicker than that, where we could bottom out on a monthly basis, round back up into the mid-120s. If we were to then close below 107.79, you can expect the low to mid-60s within probably 1 to 2 months with a spike in volatility. Now for the upside, and this is the critical element, I think, for Palantir. I think you can buy this stock aggressively and hold it into later year if we can get up and over these two channel structures. 160.40 is the top one. This is our upward pivot point through the rest of the year. Until then, we're locked in this congestive framework. If we can close above 160.40, not going to happen this week, but if, say, in July or August this occurs, then this 241.34, I think, becomes a realistic, what was this, April to November? That was in like 6 months. So yes, possibly within 6 months, this stock could almost double. Anyway, don't want to get carried away here. I think that pretty much covers it. I am going to leave it at that. Please click like, share, subscribe. Check out wickedstocks.com. Don't forget, we offer a 2-week free trial at wickedstocks.com. I'll be back with another edition of the Mag 7 series next week. You have a great week.